everybody, happy Wednesday evening live tutorial stream. Hope everyone is doing well out there in the wilds of the internet today. It was actually really, it turned into a lovely day here in Dallas. It was cold this morning though. Hi Lori, hi Ace, hi Heather from the other side of the computer screen.
Hello.
I had to drive, so Miss Mamie got her kitty hysterectomy today, and she came through it with flying colors. Also, hi Megan. She was also cooking 5 kittens in her tiny little body. So she's doing great. She is here. She's currently she's thinking she's hiding right now in plain sight here at the bead shop, so if she's up to it, I'll bring her on stream for a minute during the sale. But she did come through her surgery with flying colors. She's doing great. She is right now extremely drunk. Heather's been taking pictures and laughing her ass off at the poor drunk little drunk cat, like wobbling her way around the store and like tripping over her own. You would think that 4 legs would make you, yes, she will definitely post photos. She's walking to her car right now to get cider for later, so I'll have her post photos when she gets back. But, you would think 4 legs would make you more stable, but apparently it's just, twice as many legs over which you can trip when you're stoned. But she's doing well. She's here, like I said, if she's up to it, I'll bring her on stream for the sale. But yeah, right now she's found a little hidey hole, which isn't actually a hidey hole, but nobody's going to tell her that. She's hanging out there and just chilling, which is good. It's exactly what she's supposed to be doing. When I got Ziggy neutered, he did not just chill and sleep off the drugs. No, he was like, hey, hold my beer, I'm going to jump on this thing. And then he would like jump, and then he would just completely biff it, and he would fall. And then he'd stand up with his little drunken self, and he'd be like, oh wait, no, I'm going to jump this thing down. It was the most hilariously just awful thing. I was like, dude, just sleep it off. So at least she's being a little bit smarter than he was. So welcome to the Wednesday evening tutorial stream. We are doing this today. This is our cone ending for multiple strands. So this is my sample. This is that's the price of the sample. So this is a repeat class. We have done this before, but what this is it is a way to, I know, right? It's definitely a guy. I mean, I'm not gonna, point fingers, but the female cat obviously has way more sense than the male cat, as far as, how to behave after major surgery, though also, to be fair, it's a little bit more major for the girl kitty than the boy kitty, but anyway, God, poor thing, yeah, she had major surgery and vaccinations and all kinds of things today, so yeah, if she sleeps for a week, I won't be surprised, I know I would. So, your cone finish is a way that you can take multiple strands and you can basically hide all of the crimps and everything inside of this cone. So inside of here there are actually, oh, and I didn't grab crimp beads. I need to grab crimp beads, and there was something, oh, and I need to go grab a couple more supplies in just a minute, but but yeah, so there are my crimp beads. You can see them, they're inside there, but when my bracelet is being worn, you can't, because the cone covers it, and then you've got this nice wire wrapped finish that you see, and so it's a really nice way of kind of making your multi-strand pieces a little bit more refined, so that you're not seeing all of the finishing bits. And so as far as tools and supplies go, give me just one moment. I'm going to go grab a couple more things that I had forgotten, and then I will talk about tools and supplies. So for the moment, you guys and Ziggy can hang out. Okay, so now let's talk tools and supplies for this evening's tutorial. Okay, you're going to need enough beads for however many strands of bracelet, necklace, etc. you want to make. So I've decided on a 3-strand bracelet for this evening's tutorial. We're going to talk in a minute about how you know how much length you actually need for that bracelet. But right now I've got 3 strands of beads, and I'm using 8mm beads, but this will work for any size of beads. You just need to make sure that your cone, you're going to need 2, oh goodness gracious, earthquake! You're going to need 2 cones, 1 for each end, and you just need to make sure that all of your beads will, you know, basically kind of fit up against your cone. And this cone, honestly, it could be a little bit bigger, but this is what I grabbed, so this is what we're going to use. So you just need to make sure your cone is large enough to accommodate. All of your beads don't have to go into your cone, but they all have to come up to your cone, and they all have to kind of sit there nicely, you know, like they're friends and they like each other. You're also going to need 2 loose beads. They can be the same beads as you're using for your project, or they can be different beads. I just have 2 of the same beads. You're going to need crimp beads, which is the thing that I forgot. And you're going to need 2 crimp beads per strand, so I need 6 crimp beads for my 3-strand bracelet today. You're going to need a clasp, and I'm just using a regular old lobster claw clasp. And then some kind of receptacle for that. I'm using a little piece of chain so that I've got some extendability on my bracelet. And then you're going to need wire. This is 22 gauge sterling silver wire. You can use 22 or 20 for this, but you need something that's fairly sturdy because it's where your clasp is going to be attached. So have I done this with 24 gauge wire? Yes, I have in the past. Did it hold up well? No, it really did not. So my recommendation is always 22 or 20 for this particular type of, good lord, so many cords, for this particular type of project. And then of course you're going to need stringing material for your beads, and I'm just using .018 stainless steel stringing cable. Which is a good size for this size, this 8mm size of my beads. So, as far as determining how long do you need to string your beads, okay, so when you're doing this, and on my sample I also have a little extender that I actually made. It's a wire wrapped extender. We're not going to do that tonight. We're just going to use our chain extender here, but you have to sort of, you know, be cognizant of the fact that you can't clasp the thing that you made. Here we go. Goodness. You have to be cognizant of the fact that this whole finish takes up a lot of room. You know, you've got your cone, your bead, and your clasp. So, like on this sample, that is a solid 2.5 inches worth of length. So, if I were trying to make a 7-inch bracelet and I strung 7 inches of beads, I would probably wind up with like a 9-inch bracelet, which is way too long for most people. So what you have to do is you've got to figure out how long is your whole ending thing so that you can account for that when you're stringing your beads. So that means we, of course, go to our trusty ruler, and I'm going to measure my cones. I've got 2 of these, and they are, we're just going to call them a 1/2 inch each. They're pretty close. So that's 1 inch there. There's my clasp, which is also 1/2 inch. So that's 1.5 inches. And then typically when you're doing extender chains, you'll count the first link of the chain, which is conveniently also 1/2 inch. So that's 2 inches that all of this stuff is going to take up, plus 2 beads, which is 3/4 of an inch, plus my wire wraps, which is going to be about 1/4 of an inch. So that's 3 inches total. So honestly, that means if I'm trying to make a 7-inch bracelet, I really only need like 4 inches of beads. Now that being said, when you're doing multi-strand bracelets, because there's more bulk of beads around your wrist, you typically want to cheat a little bit bigger than you would if you were doing just, say, a single strand bracelet. So I'm going to say instead of my typical 7 inches, I want to make 7.5 inches. I've got 3 inches worth of findings and wire wrapping that are going to be going into this, so that means that I'm going to need 4.5 inches of beads, which is way less than I have strung. So I'm going to go ahead and just take my strands and I'm going to adjust the lengths of them down to 4.5 inches each. So that means 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So I've got about 14 beads on each strand. And so this really does not look that long, but you have to remember that you've got all of the rest of this stuff that's going into it that's going to extend out our length, hopefully to the length we need to be wearable. We'll see. We shall see at the end of this broadcast if I have a wearable bracelet or if I have a bracelet that is going to instead be a collar for my small cat who just got spayed, who is here at Beading Dreams. Actually, honestly, I think she wears a 7-inch collar too. I got her a 6.5-inch kitten collar and she's already pretty much outgrown it. Though now that she is not packing a grapefruit in her midsection, she might be a little, I don't know. I don't know that that's going to affect the neck area, but anyway. So, I've got 3 strands of beads, 4.5 inches long. And I'm going to grab my 22 gauge wire and I'm going to trim off 2 3-inch pieces of my 22 gauge wire. And by the way, as far as, tools go, for this particular project, you're just going to need your basics. So that's going to be your round nose pliers, chain nose pliers, and of course your wire cutters. So I'm going to make, at the end of each of these pieces of wire, a basic wire wrapped loop. So of course those of you who Megan asked why, so I added the 1/2 inch because when you have a multi-strand bracelet, it tends to fit more tightly than a single strand bracelet because your strands tend to kind of bunch up on each other. And so I find that when I'm making multi-strand bracelets, I usually have to make them just a little bit bigger than I would make a single strand bracelet of the same size stone. So that's why I added that 1/2 inch, is because it's a multi-strand bracelet. So, basic wire wrap loop. Of course, anybody who's been hanging out on the Beading Dreams stream for any length of time knows that the basic wire wrapped loop is one of my favorite things to do. It's one of, in my opinion, the most useful things that you can possibly know. Teach yourself, learn, like, it's just one of those things that once you, the more you know. Now, once you know it, it's a really, really useful technique. So, I haven't done a basic wire wrapping tutorial in quite a while, actually, so we are going to go ahead and put that on the schedule at some point soon. But for now, we are going to do a couple of basic wire wrap loops tonight. Oh, good. Thank you. I was going to ask. We are going to do a couple basic wire wrap loops tonight. So if you don't need a deep dive into basic wire wrapping, you just need a reacquaintance with the technique, or maybe just a few pointers, this is a great time to do that. So we're going to start with a round nose pliers. Wrap for a minute. And one of our pieces of wire. We're going to take our round nose pliers and we're going to grab about 1 inch to 1.5 inches from the end of our wire. And we're going to take our non-plier hand. Okay, so I am a right-handed individual. My pliers are in my right hand, so I'm going to take my left hand. And I'm going to push my wire away from me, over my pliers, to make a 90-degree angle. Then I'm going to loosen my pliers, rotate them up 1/8 of a turn, and grab again. So I grabbed right on that corner that I just made. And I'm going to pull my wire back up over the top of my pliers towards me and down until it hits the other wire. So now what I'm starting to do... That's awesome, Ace. Woo! Basic wire wrapping for the win! So what I'm starting to do here is I am forming my loop around my pliers. Now, I need to finish this loop, but I can't right now because this part of my pliers is right in the way. So what I just need to do is loosen my pliers, rotate them out of the way, and grab again, and then push my wire underneath my pliers to create the lady with a scarf. Yes, we all love the lady with a scarf on the Beading Dream stream. So that's just my name for this shape because it looks like, oh, pardon me, it looks like a woman if she were in a convertible, motoring along on a lovely day with a long, dramatic scarf trailing out behind her. Now I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and hold across this lady's head, like so, and then I'm going to wrap that loop closed. Okay, so I'm going to start right at the base of my circle and go around. Doesn't have to be too many times, so 2 or 2.5 wraps is plenty sufficient. And then trim your end off and press it down. Now, the good thing about this is this whole construction that I just made is going to be completely, thank you, Heather, it's going to be completely covered by my comb. So, if you're going to make a crappy wire wrap, this is the time to do it. And I'm going to do the same thing on my other piece of wire, which needs just a little bit of straightening. Alright, so again, we go away, rotate, back up over the top, rotate, underneath, lady with the scarf, hold across the loop, and wrap. Trimmed. And honestly, you could totally get away with not even pressing your end down, because once again, this is going to be under your cone. It's such a habit for me that I literally can't. Like, it makes my eyelids twitch if I make a wire wrap loop and I don't press it down. But this is one instance where you really, really could, absolutely could get away with that. Okay, so now comes the time when I'm going to crimp my bead strands onto my wire wrap loops. So as far as order of operations for this, of course, first thing you would do is figure out your length. Next thing you would do is string your beads, make your wire wraps, and then we're going to crimp them on. Now, because I have experience, I'm going to put a bead stopper on one end of my cords. You know why that is? Because if I don't, I guarantee you I'm going to wind up throwing beads all over the floor. So I've got a bead stopper on one end at this point. It doesn't really matter if anything is even or even close to even at this point. You know, we're going to crimp this onto what we just made. Excuse me. I'm so sorry, y'all. Oh, I had to have Missy Mamie at the spay neuter clinic in Crandall, which is a 30-minute drive, at 7 a.m. this morning. And I did manage to get sort of kind of a nap in after that, but it wasn't exactly the mostest restful of naps. You know, after getting up and driving 30 minutes there and 30 minutes back in 32-degree weather. Also, let it be noted that I do not enjoy watching the sunrise. No. Right? Oh my gosh. I hope you sleep better than last night too, Megan. You know, if you were awake at 6:30 a.m., you should just come over and, you know, you could have taken the cat to Crandall, and I could have slept for both of us. Which I realize is not possible because you don't live in the same state that the cat and I do. But yeah, it was, oh. And I was driving east, so I was literally watching the sunrise, and I was just like, I do not like you. Do not like you, sunrise. I do not want to see you ever if I can help it. No. No, 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 no. Oh, ew. Yeah. No, yeah. So anyway, that is one of many reasons I'm not super focused tonight. So the sale's going to be interesting. Which, by the way, let me, since we have a fair number of people on, hi people, nice to see you. Before I crimp these on, let me just real quick talk, since I didn't post jack more crap on social media today. We are going to be following up this broadcast with a live merchandise sale sometime between 7:30 and 7:45. This evening, we do have more crystal strands. We're going to be finishing up all of the crystal strands. Okay, I've got 5 trays. We're going to be trying to finish up all the crystal strands tonight, but we may still have crystal strands for Saturday. And then next week, we are going to, I believe, hold on. Yes, next week is going to be a week of sales. It's going to be 50% off, and we're going to be doing a whole bunch of sales next week. I don't know that I'm going to be doing any tutorials. I think I'm just going to be doing a sale Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, and then after the sales comes new merchandise. That was my super secret beading mission that I went on last week, Thursday, is I did manage to get my hot little hands on some new merchandise, some really pretty new merchandise. So we will have new merchandise the week following the week of sales. So that's what's coming up. That's exciting on the Beading Dreams stream. But tonight we've got crystals. We've got tiny crystals. I've got little mixed strands and mixed shapes of like 2 and 3 millimeters. I've got some 8 millimeters, and I've got some cool shapes as well. So that's going to be happening on this channel, twitch.tv /Beading Dream, about 30 minutes after the tutorial ends, which is probably going to be, like I said, between 7:30 and 7:45. So, alright, so now I'm going to continue on with the project. So, I've made my 2 basic wire wrap loops. I'm going to take one of them, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to crimp all 3 of my strands onto this basic wire wrap loop that I have made. I'm going to do that individually. You can share crimp beads if you want to in your strands, but I just find that it's way easier for me to get it to lay nicely if I don't. So I'm just going to put my crimp bead onto my stringing cable. I'm going to put my stringing cable through that wire wrap loop that I made. I'm going to flip my end around and go back down through my crimp bead. I'm going to go ahead and snug that up fairly tight. You still want your loop to be able to move, but it's not quite as important as if it were a clasp. I want to make sure that my 2 pieces of cable are parallel coming out of my crimp bead, and then I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and I'm just going to smash that crimp bead flat. Just smash it as flat as I possibly can. Okay, so what you should have is you shouldn't be able to see any airspace, or very little airspace. If you want to, you can give it a tug test just to make sure. And then you're going to trim off the little extra piece of cord right at the crimp bead. This is something that I like to do. A lot of people like to take that extra piece of cable, string it back down through your beads. That's not really my jam. For the reason that, so now I'm going to do the same with my next strand. So crimp bead goes on, and then I'm going to go through that wire wrap loop. So when you have a necklace that you wear, especially a necklace that you wear a lot, your cable will actually, now I'm going to go back down through my crimp bead, will actually stretch a tiny little bit over years of wearing it. And what happens when your cable stretches that tiny little bit is your beads are going to start to move back and forth just a little bit on your cable, because they're going to have a little bit more room than they had, you know, when you first made your piece. And what's going to happen if you take this little end and you've strung it back through your beads is eventually the motion of those beads is going to pop this out, and it's going to stab you in the neck. So I'm more a proponent of cutting it off right at the crimp bead. As long as you've done a good job of crimping your crimp, you don't need that. It doesn't add any extra security. It just, makes you feel better. Maybe. 3rd strand, crimp bead. And then through. Hey, Tallyfet! Is your internet behaving for you? I know, right? Crimp that crimp. I feel like I need Devo to sing a song about this. I'm not going to try and sing a song about it, but I feel like there should be a song about it. Okay, so this is my third one. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up like so and smash it. Ta-da! And trim. Okay, so now I've got all 3 of my strands crimped onto one of those basic wire wrap loops that I made. Now I'm going to slide all the beads up so that they are resting against those crimp beads. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So now I can take off my bead stopper. Now if I'm going to be really prudent about this, which I probably should considering the way my life has been going for the past couple days, what I can do is I can take that bead stopper and I can clip it onto the 2 strands that I'm not working with. And take one strand and I'm going to crimp this end, the free end of this strand, onto my second basic wire wrap loop that I made. Y'all, yesterday was awful. Today was awful. I think the funniest thing about yesterday, though, was I rear-ended somebody. And that was one of the most pleasant interactions of my day. Oh, it was just awful. I'm fine. My car's fine. My license plate looks like a crumpled up tin can at the moment. But I think after today, I'm going to enjoy taking some anger out by hammering my license plate flat again. So Megan has a good question, which is actually even a little bit more complicated than she thinks, or maybe she knows exactly how complicated it is. Because she said, what do you do to slide up the beads so that you don't have slack wire showing once you've finished? And the answer to that is complicated. So you actually do need some slack. So notice when I'm holding these beads, and this is why it's a good thing I have a bead stopper on there. When I bring them around, there's no cord showing. When I straighten them out, there is a little bit of cord showing, and that cord is what we call shift. Yes, there's an F in there. Shift room. Here at the Beading Dreams, that is that's the amount of room the beads need to shift over so as not to be stiff. Now, of course, if you go overboard on your shift room, then what you wind up with is you wind up with slack once everything's done. So what I always tell students is before you crimp your second crimp bead, make your piece into the shape that it's going to be when it's being worn. So usually that's a circle, whether it's a bracelet or a necklace. If it's interesting though, if you're doing a necklace that's going to be a multi-wrap, you need to make sure that you coil it around multiple times, otherwise you're not going to have enough shift room and it's going to be very, very stiff. So make sure you make your piece into the shape it's going to be when it's being worn, and when it's in that shape, you should not be able to see any cable. So don't pay attention to, you know, when you hold it up, because that's not how it's worn. You're not going to just walk around like dangling your bracelet. If you're making something to hang from your rear view mirror, that's totally different. So make it into the shape that it's going to be when it's worn. Make sure that it's not too stiff, because especially with bracelets, if it's too stiff, it's an absolute pain in the butt to put on. And then once you've determined that that is in fact the appropriate amount of shift room, then you're going to smash your crimp bead. And then I'm going to repeat that for my other 2 strands. So it's not about not having any room at all, it's just about having the appropriate amount of room. Alright, second strand, crimp bead, onto wire wrapped loop down through the crimp bead. And then your best trick for tightening is to just hold that wire wrap loop in one hand and then just pull on that tail. Just, again, make sure you don't pull too hard. Because this strand is way too tight. It's not laying nicely like this one is, so I need to go ahead and loosen that up a bit. There we go. Alright, so we want even tension. Smashy smash. And cutty cut. And the last one goes onto there. If you're doing, so another good question from Megan, if you're doing a multi-strand bracelet, all of your strands should be the same size, and yes, you should normalize that length before you join the second side together. I'm going to crimp this third, or actually technically this is my sixth crimp bead. So yeah, if you're doing a bracelet, they should all be the same length, and you should make sure that that happens before you do your crimping. If you're doing a necklace, they don't necessarily need to be the same length. Like if you want a tiered look where you've got a short strand and a longer strand and a longer strand, then that obviously they're going to be separated by a certain amount of length, and that amount is determined by how big of a gap you want in between the strands. So either way, you've got to set your length before you crimp the second side, whether you're doing all even, whether you're doing tiered, it doesn't matter. When you crimp that second side, it's set. Like now I'm stuck with this, so here's hoping that it's long enough, because if it ain't, I've got to start. I can reuse the wire wrap loops, but I've got to restring my beads. I think it's going to be fine, but just saying. Okay, now I'm going to drop my cone on one end. So now we see the beauty of the cone finish is all of the less attractive bits, the crimp beads, the cone is going to cover. I'm going to follow my cone with one bead. Now this isn't completely necessary. I just like the way it looks because it kind of unifies the look of the whole thing. If you think that the bead that you've used for your bracelet is too big or doesn't look good with the cone, you don't have to use the same bead. You can use whatever bead you want. Now I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to do another basic wire wrap loop. Yes, I am. And I'm going to use that to attach the clasp. So in this case, I'm going to grab with my round nose pliers so that they are touching the top of that bead. And I'm going to do my basic wire wrap loop procedure. So away, rotate, back up over the top, rotate, underneath. That gives me, again, my lady with a scarf. Now, before I wrap this one closed, I'm going to grab my clasp and I'm just going to slide that onto my wire and pop it up into my loop. Then grab my chain nose, pull across that loop, and I'm going to wrap. And I'm going to wrap starting at the base of that loop all the way down until I reach that bead. Now what you want to make sure is that you don't shove this down too tight or you're going to undo all of that work you did figuring out what the appropriate shift room was. Okay, so just kind of give it a little test, make sure that you're not wrapping that down too tight, and then trim. And you do need to press your end down on this because this one is visible. But again, see what I meant about the first one we made isn't. It's completely hidden. So if you have to do one that looks crappy, make it your first one, not your second one. Now the other side, drop your cone over, like so. Put a bead on. And then, again, round nose pliers, basic wire wrap loop. Away, rotate, back up over the top, rotate, underneath, lady with a scarf. I'm going to use my chain. You could also use a soldered ring. You don't have to use chain. That's just, I find when I'm using lobster claws on bracelets, chain makes it a little easier to fasten them because you've got a couple of chances to catch that. Then you're going to take your chain nose pliers, you're going to hold across your loop, and once again we're going to wrap down starting at the base of our loop. And you want to make sure that you're going really horizontal when you do that. If you notice that I just corrected myself because I kind of went down on a diagonal, and that's not what you want. You want to go as close to you know, a straight line across as you can. And once again, don't wrap too tight. You don't want to undo that shift room that you made. And trim. Press your end down. And there you go. That is my cone finish for multi-strand bracelet. So let's see, just for grins, from the end of the clasp to the end of, or to the first link of my extender, how long did this turn out to be? 7.5 inches, which is exactly what I was going for. And then can I put it on my hand or on my wrist is the question number 2. Once again, this is why the chain is good. This is why you want to make sure you have enough shift room. And this right here is exactly why you usually need to make these bracelets a little bit longer. You see how the strands are stacking up on top of each other? That makes the bracelet fit more tightly than it normally would. So that is another reason why you want to add that little bit of extra length on there when you're doing a multi-strand bracelet. Now again, can Allison put this on herself? Well, not very well, but I did it. It's on there. Woo! So thank you all so much for hanging out with us on our Wednesday evening tutorial stream for our cone finish for a multi-strand bracelet. I'm Allison from Beading Dreams in Dallas, Texas. We are, of course, an actual brick and mortar retail bead store. We're here on Lover's Lane to feed your need to bead 6 days a week. We're here Monday through Saturday from 1 p.m. until 6 p.m. You can also find us on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream. 5 times a week with complimentary tutorials. We stream Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 6 p.m. Central Time, plus live merchandise sales every Wednesday and every Saturday at around 7:30 p.m. Central Time and Thursdays at noon. That means I'll be back with another tutorial on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream. Tomorrow with this particular project. This is a fun wire wrapped and hammered bangle bracelet, or faux bangle bracelet actually, so that's going to be a fun noon tutorial, but you don't have to wait till tomorrow at noon to see me again. I will be back on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream, in just half an hour with a live merchandise sale featuring crystals, and more crystals. So, if you're going to, more crystals.
Sweet.
Yes. And possibly a cat.
Possibly a cat.
So, if you're going to be joining us for the sale, that's awesome. Can't wait to see you there. If you're not going to join us for the sale, thanks for joining us for the tutorial, and we'll see you all back on this channel. Twitch.tv/beadingdream tomorrow at noon for another tutorial, or in about 30 minutes for the sale. If you are joining us for the sale, don't forget to grab a cocktail, grab some hydration, maybe grab a snack, get comfy, get cozy, and get ready for some bead retail therapy in the comfort of your living room, office, bedroom, or wherever you're watching the Beading Dream stream. Alright, thanks so much everyone. We'll see you in 30.